Welcome everyone to another episode of Raw Sport, episode 9. And what a blockbuster episode we have for you guys. As we do every week, myself and Mr. Tony Sheen, my co-host, we break down the latest from the world of sport with raw, unfiltered sporting opinions. Mr. Tony Sheen, how are you, buddy? How's things?
Ahmed, good morning, and it's great to be back with you on this Friday, which is unusual for us because we usually do it on a Monday or a Tuesday. So welcome to all of our new viewers on Raw Sports.
Absolutely, mate. Lots to talk about, lots happening. We start with the biggest sport in the land, the AFL. Big moves in the AFL and some breaking news. Go ahead, buddy. Tell the world.
We do have some breaking news, and the search for a new Richmond coach could be over. Raw Sports understands as late as this morning that current coach, interim coach Andrew Mini McQualter, is going to just edge out the former club legend Chris Newman and be awarded the senior position going into season 2024 with an announcement expected this coming Monday, which is huge news, Ahmed.
McQualter, what do you think of his appointment as senior head coach?
Look, I don't know enough about the intricacies from inside Punt Road, but all the external noise suggests that he's pretty bloody good at his job. He's got a win-loss ratio of 53%, and he's beaten some good teams. The other thing in regards to McQualter, if he is appointed the job on Monday, which we believe he is, does he keep that list together? They've got a good core group of players. We know their identity is changing as we speak. Cochin retired, Rewald's gone. What does Dusty do? There's a myriad of, I wouldn't say problems, but he's certainly got to make some big decisions along with the CEO, Brendan Gale, and the head of list management, Blair Hartley, as to what they look like from October moving forwards.
Wow. Well, he's done not bad, actually, after taking over from Hardwick. So I think he's got that synergy with his players. He's got the respect from his players, and I think they play for him. They showed some amazing glimpses of football. But what does that mean now in the greater scheme of things in terms of coaches? We've been talking a lot about there's not much coaching talent out there. Let's say this was a coaching job elsewhere. Let's create a scenario here.
Yeah, go for it.
If, let's say, a team, like the West Coast Eagles, looking for a coach, would McQualter make the cut of the last three?
The last, in terms of if they were to take over from Adam Simpson tomorrow?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think he does. I think no longer do we sort of go down the road of having to hire somebody who's tall and bullocking. It's now more about maybe a soft approach. And I think Craig McRae, Stuart Dew's probably a big, physically big person, but he's not that tall. Whereas Craig McRae, Luke Beveridge and McQualter are smaller sized people who tend to be more empathetic rather than the old school of being big and bollocking.
Well, Beveridge is empathetic. Kane Corns' biggest complaint about him is that he doesn't relate to the bloody players.
Yeah, but that's one person's opinion. I think Beveridge yes, they missed out on the finals this year, but I don't think Beveridge would have the relationship he does with some of the players to get their efforts out of them if he didn't have a level of empathy. Bontempelli's arguably the greatest player in the competition at the moment, alongside Toby Green. Liberatore has had his a fantastic couple of years. How many other coaches would have been able to do that? And they've bred some really good players. Tim English, he's All-Australian ruckman. So what they've been able to do, you can't turn around and say Luke Beveridge is just constantly harassing and ear-bashing his players. I mean, every coach now has to have a level of empathy in their repertoire. Otherwise, they lose the players, and then they lose the board, and then they're gone.
So you're saying, from what you're saying, is that we are living in a generation filled with softies.
You're saying that?
Well, I'm just translating what you pretty much just said over the last couple of minutes.
I think the coaches and management of today across all genres have to be far more considerate of employees than they have done in the past.
So then, why the change, and what's size got to do with anything?
Size?
Yeah, you said tall, big, bulky guys coaching no more.
Well, because the inference and or appearance of somebody who is 6'2" or 6'3" and above, who is a strong person, has a perception that they are rough and tumble.
Yeah, but most of the AFL 6'2", 6'3". So
yeah. But so what I'm saying is, because these players, yes, they're quick and yes, they're tough, but they're not as tough as what they used to breed them 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So we're dealing with a generation of softies.
It's an observation rather than a criticism, and we're having to move into a new era. That's why we discussed the new general manager's position, which has been taken up by Laura Kane. Is she moving the AFL into a softer brand of football? There'll be less injuries, less contact, but will it give players longevity?
So who's going to watch it then?
We don't know.
Interesting. Let's keep going. Does Dusty stay at Richmond? New head coach McQualter, according to our sources. Does that keep Dustin Martin?
Look, I would like to say yes, but I think if Dustin Martin, depending on where his mental health is, he can play another, I think, 14 games next season and join the 300 club, and I think keep his current salary. The other part of the equation is, can he organise a trade to the Gold Coast to play under his old coach Damien Hardwick, where he gets less money, but it may be a better outcome for the longevity of his mental health, considering that Melbourne is bathed in cloud and rain and the Gold Coast is not.
And Texas too. Interesting. I mean, I think he'll go. I don't think he'll stay. Yeah, I think he'll go to the Gold Coast, to Hardwick. I mean, there's lots of ups. There's less pressure being an AFL player there, less media scrutiny, in my opinion. You're going to live a normal life. You're living on the beaches, nice and sunny.
Ahmed, let me interrupt. As much as Dustin Martin wants to turn around and live a normal life, he's had 10 years of being followed around by the media and the paparazzi. When you take that away, it can have an enormous effect on the psyche of the person, no matter how much of a star they are.
But he's going to get that every week when he jumps on the field.
Yeah, but it's different up there because he won't have the same scrutiny over a long period of time where there'll be cameras, chasing him outside of nightclubs or restaurants or bars or knowing who he's dating.
But he is a star, so the media will follow him. Sorry?
Genuine star.
Yeah, so that's why the media will follow him. They'll follow him and they'll look for stories about him because he puts bums on seats and he puts eyes on screens or papers.
Oh, I think Sydney should go after him.
Well, that's worse because he's going to an even hotter market. Sydney's less AFL, but it's more in a country sense. It's a hot spot in Melbourne for everything. Yeah, you're right. You'll be right in the middle of the hustle and the bustle.
Yeah, but he won't be hassled as much because Sydney is an international city. Yes, there'll be a lot of eyes on him, but I think it would be better for him because you get better weather than Melbourne and you get more attention than the Gold Coast. So I think it creates a better platform for him physically and emotionally than it would to go from the hustle and bustle of Melbourne and the freezing cold for an AFL saturated city to then go to the Gold Coast. I think the gap would be too great for him to acclimatise.
Okay. Would you say GWS has room in their salary cap for it?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. They've got to pay Toby Green a new deal now, so that would take...
It's only one. They got rid of a few recently as well, so...
Yeah, but I think they need to pay their team more evenly rather than these roller coaster salaries versus the young kids who don't get nowhere near as much because they're living in a non-preferred AFL state.
But they need the buzz that he brings.
What about Toby Green? He's the best player in the comp.
He is, but he's not the star that Dusty is. Dusty's won 3 flags. He's Brownlow medalist. He's done it all, and he's a cultural star. So he's required for a team like the GWS Giants. He brings that culture with him.
Yeah, look, I still think he would be better off going to Sydney to build the game. If you go to GWS, you build the club.
No, I think you do both, because if you're building GWS as a club, you're building the game, because Greater Western Sydney, and that's the part where the AFL needs some more work and effort to actually grow, because it's dominated by rugby league.
Yeah, no, of course. But look, I have my own opinion on this. I spoke to a club executive 2 weeks ago, and he thinks that they need to move Sydney to Greater Western Sydney, not Greater Western Sydney to the SCG.
Interesting. Sydney to Greater Western Sydney, and Greater Western Sydney to the SCG?
No. So what it would be is the Swans and the Giants play out of Homebush.
Oh, what's the purpose of that?
Well, that's the centre of Sydney, geographically.
Yeah, but then you're going to have 2 teams. Then you become like the equivalent in soccer, Inter Milan and AC Milan. They both have one home ground, but they are 2 very big clubs. But it could work, actually.
Yeah, I think the GWS should move into the SCG to be in the heart of Moore Park, which is on the edge of the city, which is where the Swans train, because the public transport and the parking at Homebush is very average. And too often, New South Wales...
Why don't they work on it?
Well, I just think there's always too many problems. We discussed this 3 weeks ago. How could it be for the Swans and the Giants game at Homebush, at the Giants' home ground, they cancelled the trains on the Saturday and brought them back for the women's soccer on the Sunday? I mean, come on.
The New South Wales government pays the A-League $10 million a year, right? Spend some of that money improving facilities around Homebush, car park, trains, whatever it is.
Yep.
What is a big deal? I mean, these are all resolvable things if they really want to.
Well, yes, but I just think that the Giants should be playing at least a couple of home games at the SCG to build the awareness amongst the Sydney public.
Do you think there's not enough of an economical impact on Homebush for that money to be spent by the Giants?
Well, I think it was a government suggestion based on the fact that they were building an Olympic stadium, and therefore they thought an AFL team and NRL teams would base themselves there. And my personal view is that it hasn't worked.
No, absolutely hasn't. It has not.
So,
all right. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to move on because we you can sort of go on hypotheticals all the way through. But Dusty, interesting to see what he will do. We will wait and see, and we will keep you all updated. Players on the move. The rumour mill's out. A couple of players are on the move. A couple of big trades. Fill us in.
Well, the late mail is for Raw Sports viewers that Todd Goldstein could be lured out of North Melbourne and into a black and red jumper run by Brad Scott. They could reconvene under the Essendon banner.
Yes, there you go. An old coach.
So
Partnership.
Yeah, look, I'm just wondering about Essendon's ruck stocks. It would certainly deplete North Melbourne if he chose to leave, and he's a very good ruckman. Or whether Brad Scott whether he legitimately wants him at Essendon. I mean, I think Todd Goldstein's early 30s.
Yeah, he's played over 300 games.
Yeah, and he's a great tap ruckman, and he gets the ball around the ground and can kick goals. So I think, but at this point of his career, should Essendon be going after somebody of Goldstein's caliber? So he would bring a lot of experience, but does Brad Scott hire for the now or hire for the future?
Why would he go there? Like, for him, he's played at this club his whole life. This club's given him everything. Why would you leave now when things are starting to shape up and you can be an asset?
Well, I'm not sure that things are starting to shape up. I mean, they actually won one game, the last game of the year, which will.
They were very competitive last year.
You mean this season?
Yeah, last season. They were very, very, very competitive. They weren't getting slapped around by 100 point every second week. Sorry?
Unlike Essendon.
Yeah, well, this is my point. Why I say things are getting better is if you look at the games, they lost a lot of games under 10 points. So the team's there. The fighting spirit is there. He's definitely made a difference. Compare it to last year and the year before. Big difference. Huge difference.
Yeah.
And the coaching staff that he's brought in, and don't forget, he's not going to. Things don't happen like this. They got to see, right, how players react to their game styles, and then once that all starts happening, a lot of players will leave this year. Do you think Zeeble wanted to retire this year? No chance. They said to him, they tapped him on the shoulder, guaranteed. Stevie said, come on, see you later, let's go.
Well, maybe you're right, but I think Zeeble probably had to retire.
No, he played a good year. He played not bad.
Well, yeah, but okay. Leave him on the halfback flank then, but I thought North Melbourne.
Yeah, but what does that tell you? What does that tell you? This is what I'm trying to tell you now. They need what?
A new bunch of leaders.
Well, that's what they're doing. And one of them is Mr. Sheasel, who won the NAB Rising Star Award. And then another one is Larky, who made the All-Australian team.
No,
so this squad, sorry. Right? So this is what we're talking about. He kicked 70 goals in a team that's finished second last.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And we had a couple of injuries. LDU was injured. Anyway, I don't want to make the episode about North. The summary is that North's definitely improved under this new leadership, Alistair Clarkson and his crew. And don't forget, Alistair was targeted and attacked by his former club that he did so much for, by petty people who were just trying to get back at him, and he had to take time off. Yeah. So it's I think as an outcome they did well because they showed their fighting spirit, and that's what fans want to see. But Goldie, is he going or is he staying?
I just want to digress for 1 second just to advance something that you said. I think North Melbourne has to pay homage to Todd Viney. He has been the glue that has held that place together. When Brett Ratton came back in to take over from Clarko was incapacitated at home with the crook back. They were copying it internally and externally. And look, there seems to be an element of enthusiasm based on the last win of the season down in Hobart and Nick Larkey kicking 70 goals. So, look, maybe you're right. But does Goldie depart the Kangaroos? I would say no, but I think it's good for him to have an offer on the table.
It is. But hopefully he stays because he's a great asset.
Well, he's a person.
Sorry?
He is a North Melbourne person.
He is. He's been there since day one. Like, he's played his whole career there. He's played over 300 games there.
Yeah. Now, what about teammate Taron Thomas?
Yeah. Apparently, he's been offered something too.
Yeah. Well, I told you I was blown away when my person rang me this morning and said that he could be out the door, not because of North Melbourne, but there is an offer from a competing club for him to leave the Kangaroos. And if the estimates are right, Taron Thomas could be getting as much as $800,000 a season.
Is he worth it?
No. Look, he is a good player, but he's not worth $800,000 a season.
How many years?
I think they're looking at 4 years.
I think he's worth it.
You do?
Yeah.
I think he needs some continuity. If he can produce continuity and impact games, well, definitely he's worth it.
Because the 800 is not about now. It's about next year and the year after.
You can't keep paying people on potential.
Well, it's a battle for talent, Tony. You have to acquire talent somehow. That's the game we're in. It's a business. It's a business of talent. How do we acquire the best talent and keep them around? You got to pay them.
They're underpaid as it is.
They are underpaid. But what I'm trying to say to you is sometimes I have to overpay at the start to keep him for the long run. It's a strategic move on behalf of the club who is coming and trying to poach him, because when he's on, he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's as classy as they come. He reminds me a bit of Daniel Wells, but he doesn't have his speed. But he's a gun. If he can get his head right, he's unbelievably talented.
Okay, well, we look forward to watching him next year, wherever he plays.
Hopefully at North. But full disclosure, we're both North fans. Just
Thomas?
Yeah, just in case you guys have not noticed. All right, move on from the AFL. US Open.
Yes,
what do you got for us from the US Open, mate? The latest update.
Look, I was disappointed to see our highly ranked females, Ilya Tomljanovic and Daria Saville, bow out in the second round. Disappointing, because I think those two, in isolation, have played good tennis in the past. Saville had a shocking run with ACLs, and Tomljanovic has been, I think she was as high as the quarters at Wimbledon last year, if my memory serves me correctly.
I don't recall.
They have the talent. But why doesn't our female tennis pathway program start reproducing some big name players?
Like who?
Well, I'd like to see Saville and Tomljanovic creep up into the into the top 20 or 30.
Look, I mean, if we're going to be honest, since the last few years of tennis for Australian females, since the young lady from the Gold Coast or Queensland retired, her name is just gone.
Oh, Ash Barty?
Ash Barty.
Yeah.
Since she's retired, and I think because she retired early, we've had a bit of a lull, like a bit of a dip in talent on the world stage. Because usually players like that will play out into their mid-30s.
Yeah, when she retired at 26?
She was really young. Like she just said, "That's it. I've done what I wanted to do in life," and that's it. And she was a machine, absolute superstar. But because that's the way it tends to work. There's always that one player that holds the mantle and leads the way for the country, represents the country. Leighton Hewitt did it. Pat Rafter before him did it. Philip Poussas done it in moments, in patches, somewhere in the world.
An absolute star.
Carey is bad as well. He's like Philip Poussas, a lot, very patches, moments and patches.
He's a better player than Philip Poussas.
No doubt. But again, moments and patches. Molik was a good player.
I think didn't she win a Davis Cup for us?
Yeah. Jelena Dokic was a great player.
He was.
So these people did it throughout their whole careers, even though Dokic had a really up and down, poor thing. Like her career was filled with stops and starts, which I think hindered her chances of, really performing, showing her fulfilling her talent, really. And so Barty's left that gap now because she retired early, and these young ones were coming up. They need time. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and they need to. I think psychologically, they relied on her ability around the world as a leader, for her to lead the rest of the female Aussie tennis team. And now that she's gone, I think there's an enormous dearth of talent.
100%. And it's like we've just said, it's because of that, in my opinion, is that early retirement.
But if Albanese and co are serious about women's sports, I would have thought tennis would have been the first sport they would have got behind, because there's equal prize money, there's less output, and people actually like watching women's tennis.
Albanese is not serious about women's sport. It's a political move. The World
Maybe,
Cup momentum, and that's it. If they
maybe,
were serious about, if those, how long has he been in politics?
30 years.
Have you heard a whisper from him before this about women's sports?
No, but this is political because it's come from the international people.
Exactly. It's come from a much higher agenda. But anyway, we don't want to get into all that. But yeah, so hopefully we can see a bit more investment go into these ladies, and we can see them succeed and go on to do some great things. All right, move on. Australian Test cricket star Alex Carey's been receiving death threats. What the hell's going on?
Well, this was on the back of the Ashes series where he was wicket-keeping for Australia, I think, in the third test, if my memory serves me. And Johnny Bairstow walked out of the crease thinking that it was a dead ball, and Carey threw the ball and hit the wickets, and the umpire deemed him out of his crease and out. So in the ensuing weeks and months since he has been back from England, he's via his social media, I think it was Instagram to be specific, he's suffered quite a lot of threatening messages, so much so that the police were called in, which is a really serious allegation. I mean, nobody wants to live in fear, and when you take these things seriously, it's really unnerving, whether it's for Alex Carey or Joe Bloggs.
Wow, that's really petty.
Yeah,
it's really disgraceful.
Well, I've never understood why people would be so disrespectful and challenging of our sports stars. Yes, they can infuriate us, but the threats of violence are just
it's sport. What happens on the field stays on the field. They're humans. Everyone makes mistakes, mate. Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. Yep. And hold them to such a high degree that it's almost impossible.
It's pathetic, mate. Honestly, it's pathetic. But anyway, we wish him all the best, and hopefully he can get these things sorted and get some protection by our law enforcement officers. All right, we move on. There was a volleyball game in Nebraska yesterday, a college volleyball game. It attracted how many people? 10,000, 15, 20. Volleyball, ladies and gentlemen, 92,000 people packed the Nebraska stadium.
Wow.
Football stadium.
Who played?
It was Nebraska versus, I can't remember nobody cared about the opposition because everyone was so taken by the, what's it called?
By the crowd.
By the crowd.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, they played. Who did they play? Not sure. Anyway, we'll keep going. Why is this so impressive? It's a volleyball game, right? Female volleyball game is popular, but not 92,000 people. It's unbelievable. So the athletic director of Nebraska Athletics was asked, what was the strategy here? How'd you do it? Right. So they said to him, what they did is that to make the game popular is they, over time, because football and volleyball usually were played after each other, right? And what they would do is they would let in all the people with football tickets for free to watch the game.
Yep.
So then automatically, now these people are coming in, they get to watch a double header. Why not, right? And the audience kept building. And as we know, football audiences are huge in America, easily 100,000. But they'll get that easily, especially when there's big games on. This college football. So the strategy was absolutely that's a mastermind strategy, and it paid off. And they've broken records for female sport, highest ever attendance, and power to them. Good on them.
Yeah, good on. Round of applause.
So these are the things that what I love about the Yanks. What they do is they're so innovative. They think outside the box. They're not so strict and stringent. You got to do this. No, let's improve. Let's take it to the next level. How do we do this? How do we do that? That's the difference between, in my opinion, how we are in Australia and why the Americans are so far ahead.
Yeah, I think precisely. We are rigid and regimented here in Australia, and they are loud and boisterous and want to do everything times a million.
Exactly. Like one of the biggest examples of that is the AFL Grand Final. Traditionalists, who cares? It's a business. At night, everyone knows the night game gets the ratings. Put it at night, right? So it's these are the things where I think we have to get better as a country. We have to lift the standards and compete at the highest level.
I know this wasn't on our to-do list, on our topics, but should we compromise about a day-night grand final and have it start time of, say, 5:30?
It's too early.
Why? But you go into dark. So you do an Australian act pre-game, and then you do a international act at halftime and after the game.
Look, I'll tell you something. I don't want to talk about the grand final because there's multiple aspects of it that like the performance at halftime. Like I think we should leave it until next episode, heading into the finals, and we'll go into full detail about how we would do things differently.
Yep.
Alrighty. All right, that brings us to the end of our show. And as I do every week, I hand it over to you, Tony, for some words of wisdom.
My words of wisdom this week are, Dusty, stay at Richmond to get 300, and Toby Green, AA captain.
Congrats, Toby Green, on the All-Australian captaincy. We wish you all the best in the upcoming final series. And that's all from us at Raw Sport. Thank you, everyone. Take care. We'll catch you all next week.
Just before we go, just tell all of our viewers, Ahmed, that we're now going to be doing twice a week throughout the final series.
Throughout the AFL final series, we'll be coming to you live on YouTube twice a week. Make sure you tune in on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Take care, everyone. Au revoir. Bye-bye.